William S. Burroughs, The Symbolism of Language and the Subliminal Kid. The writings of William S. Burroughs are a philosophical study analyzing symbols of control, addiction, technology, and language itself. His symbolic framework utilizes a disjointed, fragmented system of images and concepts that reflect his experimental approach. Language itself is his most central symbol. In works like The Ticket That Exploded in Nova Express, he describes language as a virus, a parasitic code that infects thought and constrains human freedom. This metaphor expresses his conviction that language is not a neutral medium, but a form of biological and social control. His cut-up technique, in which text is physically sliced and rearranged, acts as a ritual act of exorcism, a way to break the control of the word and reveal hidden messages beneath conventional syntax. The recurring imagery of machines and tape recorders represents the mechanization of consciousness. Burroughs portrays human beings as hybrid entities caught between organic life and technological systems. The tape recorder is a symbol of the fragmentation of identity, the self as a looping playback of pre-recorded phrases, memories, and behaviors. By manipulating these recordings, characters attempt to reclaim their freedom or to rewrite reality itself. Nova Express is not simply about words. It is constructed from them as weapons and viruses. Burroughs turns language into both a theme and an active participant in the narrative, something that infects, manipulates, and mutates consciousness. For Burroughs, language is not a neutral vessel for communication but a form of biological technology, a virus that colonizes the human nervous system. He describes how word and image locks keep human beings trapped in repeating patterns of behavior and thought. These locks are not metaphoric in his cosmology. They are literal viral mechanisms implanted by what he calls the control machine, an entity or system that uses language to maintain social and psychic order. When people speak, they reproduce this virus, passing it from one mind to another. Every cliché, slogan, advertisement, and official phrase is a carrier of the infection. Burroughs' use of the cut-up method, his practice of slicing up and rearranging text, was an attempt to combat this linguistic virus. By breaking sentences apart and recombining them, he sought to reveal the hidden codes and manipulative structures within conventional writing. The result is prose that feels fractured, hallucinatory, and unstable. This fragmentation mirrors the way Burroughs perceives reality itself, layered, programmed, and full of subliminal directives. Language becomes both the disease and the potential cure, if it can be cut up, rewired, and used against itself. The character of the subliminal kid embodies Burroughs' vision of counter-control. The kid is a symbolic figure, less a person than a force or principle of subversion. He represents the possibility of turning the control mechanisms of language back against their operators. His name evokes in the underlying subliminal influence. He moves through the novel as a kind of guerrilla agent, manipulating sound, image, and word patterns beneath the surface of consciousness. The subliminal kid is a member of the Nova mob using technological means to subvert the Nova police. His influence is similar to that of the trickster in American Indian mythology. The subliminal kid's operations are not purely destructive, they are transformative. He reprograms the linguistic virus, using its own logic to dismantle it. Burroughs portrays him as a revolutionary hacker of the psyche, someone who understands that freedom must begin at the level of syntax and perception. The subliminal kid's interventions take place in the underground circuits of communication, radio waves, telepathic transmissions, tape recordings, spaces where language and consciousness blur. In these liminal zones, the kid performs acts of sabotage against the control machine, inserting disruptions and distortions that break the hypnotic flow of programmed speech. The subliminal kid is the embodiment of Burroughs' ideal artist or writer, one who works not within language but against it, seeking to liberate thought from linguistic determinism. His tactics mirror the author's own, as Burroughs uses literary form to attack the medium itself. Nova Express is structured like a viral counter-operation, full of repetitions, echoes, and abrupt cuts that destabilize meaning. The reader is infected by the text, drawn into its loops and interruptions, and forced to experience language as something alien and alive. The Subliminal Kid and Burroughs' theory of language converge into a single symbolic act of resistance. Language, the primary tool of control, can also become the instrument of liberation, but only when its underlying patterns are exposed and disrupted. Burroughs turns writing into a form of psychic warfare, and the Subliminal Kid is his soldier, operating within the noise and static of modern communication to reclaim the human mind from the grip of the word virus. The Subliminal Kid appears in several of William S. Burroughs' works beyond Nova Express, functioning as a kind of recurring mythic or symbolic figure within his wider, cut-up cosmology. Like many of Burroughs' characters, the Kid isn't a fixed personality, but an evolving presence, a shifting mask through which Burroughs explores his ideas about control, communication, and the subversive power of language. The Subliminal Kid first emerges in The Soft Machine and reappears throughout the Nova trilogy, The Soft Machine, The Ticket That Exploded, and Nova Express. Across these works, he changes form and context, sometimes appearing as an agent or revolutionary fighting against the Nova police and their control systems. His name and function connect him to the idea of subliminal communication, the hidden messages beneath ordinary language and media that shape thought without conscious awareness. In The Ticket That Exploded, he's associated with sound and recording technologies, manipulating tape loops and word fragments as tools for psychic warfare. The Kid is an audio engineer of consciousness, disrupting the continuous playback of control messages that constitute everyday speech and thought. Outside the Nova trilogy, the figure's influence can be felt in The Electronic Revolution, Burroughs' non-fiction manifesto on language and control. There, Burroughs expands his theory that language is a virus, proposing that spoken words can function as acoustic weapons. He describes how sound recordings can be used to disrupt authority, incite confusion, or manipulate emotion, an extension of the Subliminal Kid's tactics into real-world possibilities. The essay is both parascience and political provocation, suggesting that the manipulation of sound and language could become a revolutionary technique against authoritarian power. The Ticket That Exploded in particular serves as a blueprint for this philosophy. The novel reads like a series of experiments in deprogramming. Burroughs imagines a war fought with words and images, where control systems use mass media to infect consciousness. The Subliminal Kid's interventions here are symbolic acts of counterprogramming, cut-ups, loops, and rewinds that expose the mechanics of manipulation. Burroughs' own writing method mirrors the Kid's techniques. By cutting up text and sound, he sought to short-circuit the smooth flow of conditioned meaning and reveal the subliminal content hidden within ordinary discourse. Other Burroughs' works that deal deeply with language as a form of control include The Job, a series of interviews and essays where he outlines his theories on word viruses, control systems, and telepathy. In Cities of the Red Night and the Western Lands, these ideas evolve further. Language remains central but is now part of a wider exploration of how reality itself may be written, rewritten, and hacked. Even when the Subliminal Kid no longer appears by name, his ethos, the use of linguistic disruption to liberate consciousness, remains embedded in Burroughs' narrative strategy. Through the figure of the Subliminal Kid and his continual theorizing about language, Burroughs constructs a mythology of linguistic resistance. In his universe, words are living organisms, sound waves are weapons, and writing is an act of counter-control. The Subliminal Kid, whether as character, voice, or impulse within the text, is the one who listens beneath the noise, decodes the hidden transmissions, and turns the virus back on its host. In Burroughs' symbolic universe, every image is unstable, contaminated, and mutable. Symbols do not point to fixed meanings but to processes of infection, transformation, and resistance. His symbology mirrors his vision of reality itself, a constantly shifting network of codes, organisms, and desires struggling to break free from control.